Page 13. The mind doesn't work that way. Jerry Fodor, 2001. The Scope and Limits of Computational Psychology. Chapter 1. Varieties of Nativism. 1.2. The New Synthesis. Computation. It's a remarkable fact that you can tell, just by looking at it, that any declarative sentence of the syntactic form P and Q, John swims and Mary drinks, for example, is true if and only if P and Q are themselves both true, that is, that sentences of the form P and Q entail, and are entailed by, the corresponding sentences P, Q. To say that you can tell this just by looking is to claim that you don't have to know anything about what either P or Q means to see that these entailment relations hold, and that you also don't have to know anything about the nonlinguistic world. This really is remarkable since, after all, it's what they mean, together with the facts about the nonlinguistic world, that decide whether P or Q are true. This line of thought is often summarized by saying that some inferences are formally valid, which is in turn to say that they hold just in virtue of the syntax of the sentences that enter into them. It was Turing's great discovery that machines can be designed to evaluate any inference that is formally valid in that sense. That's because, although machines are awful at figuring out what things mean and aren't much better at figuring out what's going on in the world, you can build them so that they are quite good at detecting and responding to syntactic properties and relations. That, in turn, is because the syntax of a sentence reduces to the identity and arrangement of its elementary parts, and, at least in the artificial languages that machines compute in, these elementary parts and arrangements can be exhaustively itemized, and the machine specifically designed to detect them. So, Turing showed us how to make a computing machine that will recognize any argument that is valid in virtue of its syntax, and the basic thesis of the new psychological synthesis is that cognitive mental processes are, perhaps exhaustively, constituted by the kinds of operations that such machines perform. Notice, in particular, that the reliance on syntax is essential only if the sufficient conditions for an inference to be truth-preserving are syntactic, that Turing guarantees that a machine is able to recognize its validity. So if, like new synthesis theorists, you propose to co-opt Turing's account of the nature of computation for use in a cognitive psychology of thought, you will have to assume that thoughts themselves have syntactic structure. What's on offer at the price of this assumption is the prospect of a theory that explains how, in a variety of kinds of cases, mental processes can lead, reliably, from one truth thought to another. That sounds to me like a bargain. Right, so much, for now, for Turing's account of computation. What has all this got to do with the rationalist tradition in psychology? Page 14.